What's up, everybody? My name is Gianfranco, and welcome back to Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright. Last time we went on the court, and the testimony was Officer Meekings, and we discovered something interesting that we managed to prove that Goodman was not in the evidence room, but we still don't know who was in the evidence room. So now we're back there, and we asked to call Marshall as to the stand. So let's continue. The court will now reconvene for the trial of Miss Lana Skye. Didn't come back. Allow me to call the next witness to the stand. The officer in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day of the crime. Witness, please state your Why did I say meme? Okay. Please state your name and occupation. Is he allowed to drink? Me, partner? Oh, I'm just a man, same as you, wandering the trails of civilization. Occasionally helping the elderly close intersections when needed, yes, we get it. Oh, I know. You are a patrolman. As for my name, if you listen hard enough, you can hear the howling wind calling me out. To be exact, it's Jake Marshall, Your Honor. Holy, wait, what? I've never heard Edward described that way before. Now, Mr. Marshall, let me ask you something. You were in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day of the crime. On the day the crime took place. Is this correct? According to papers, partner. What do you mean? A desperado soul is abominous as the desert sands. No paper can sum it up. Maybe it's best if we get with this quickly. Please share with us your testimony on the day of the crime. In plain old English. The day of the crime. My job was to keep a wary eye on that bone orchard. Is it orchard or orchard? I think it's orchard. Anyway. They said it was supposed to make rounds 3 times a day, but that ain't my style. Besides, the room's protected by 2 security systems anyway. If I remember right, I was at the street side saloon at the time it went down. I'm just an innocent traveling man, so if you're out of ammo, it's time I hit that trail. I can't say I particularly care for your attitude. I can't say I care for your beard, but you don't see me complaining. Wait a minute. What do you mean by 2 security systems? I mean the security camera and the ID card reader. I reckon even a cowpoke like you would know that you knows about those. Yes, well, what about the fingerprint activated locks on the evidence lockers? Fingerprint activated locks? What kind of newfangled doohickey are those? He's not being very helpful. He's not that good with machines, or with following orders. Everyone's got their weaknesses, don't they, Mr. Prosecutor? This one seems like trouble. Okay, Mr. Wright, he's all yours. They just say, alright, I can't handle him. Mr. Wright, do your thing. How exactly did you keep an eye on the evidence room? I just made sure nothing moved in the... I just made sure nothing moved in the security camera monitor. That room is so still. Even time dies in there. I was just a caretaker who entered the recordings. You entered them. Videos of nothing aren't that useful. When the time would come, I'd erase the tape. If nothing unusual is recorded, tapes are to be erased every 6 hours. Each time I erased a tape, it felt like I was erasing a part of my life. This guy has a flair for the dramatic, but it isn't going to do him any good. In actuality, you don't physically enter the evidence room? You made your rounds on the day of the crime, right? As you heard a word I say, partner, I told you that ain't my style. I'm afraid I don't understand. No desperado, no, I know, let the rules get in his way. No desperados, I know join the police force. So, Officer Marshall, on the day of the crime, just between you and me, I didn't set foot in the evidence room that day. There was a rubber glove stuck in the victim's locker. Do you know anything about that? Sorry, partner. Can't say I do. I haven't been that crypt in weeks. How did this guy avoid being fired? You used to be a detective, so you've used the evidence room in the past, correct? Of course. Back in the day, my locker was a goldmine of evidence. And yet, you didn't know about the fingerprints locking mechanism? Sorry, partner. I ain't good with machines. I couldn't even tell you how a bike works. That's quite incredible. The sensors on the locker handles cannot be seen. It's well known that some detectives are unaware of their presence. Now that he mentions it, Detective Gumshoe said something like that too. At any rate, it doesn't seem like this is relevant to the crime. Can you tell us what you were doing when the crime took place? I remember. What were you doing in a place like that? I was eating spaghetti. Not even angel steak at lunches can beat that Parlo's Vongole sepia pasta. Do you mean to tell us you abandoned your police duties to eat some noodles? Not all desperados eat tacos, partner. That's not what I meant. I hope this has at least told you a lesson. That's strange. This is unusual where Edward says, Did you not want to raise this year? Out of ammo, Officer Marshall? That's right, partner. Or as you'd call it, evidence. If you plan to pin me to this crime, then you'd better draw. Otherwise, you're just wasting my time. My steel horse is waiting to carry me back west into the sunset. One thing seems clear. Despite being responsible for guarding the evidence room, the witness doesn't appear to have seen anything. Texans don't take orders from anyone. Everyone knows that. I bring your superiors don't. Okay, I have a trump card up my sleeve, so I best keep my cool. Before I use it though, I better up the ante. Okay. What's this big picture? Okay. Fresh? So deep. I guess so. Yeah. Officer Marshall, doesn't it strike you as odd? That is, you being called in to testify like this. After all, you weren't in the security room at the time of the crime. And yet you dragged me down here. It's on yourself, partner. It's quite simple. You also have a very large trail behind at the scene. Or to be exact, a handprint. Listen real good, partner. Like I said, I'm the caretaker of that crypt. I pay my respects. That is, make my rounds about once a month. It's only natural. My fingerprints would be in there. I only wish it were, officer. But you see, the fingerprints were covered in blood. Witness! What's the meaning of this? The bloodstained fingerprints were at the crime scene? The blood was wiped away, however. A luminal test clearly revealed this. What, Officer Marshall? It seems to me there ain't a person in this room with a head on his shoulders. I think you have an explanation then, Officer Marshall? How about the blood-stained fingerprints? Very well, you may begin your testimony about your fingerprints. Found at the scene of the crime. Like I said, it's only natural for my fingerprints to be in that evidence room. One of them just happened to be at the same place as the bloodstained handprint. The murderer touched the locker where my fingerprints was by chance. The bloodstain and the fingerprints are completely unrelated. Or didn't you know the murderer was wearing gloves? See, I had nothing to do with it. Oh, how did you know that? The witness's explanation appears to be invalid. Although there's a room for doubt. That's when it is found without any doubt, partner. The defense may now cross-examine the witness. This guy is hiding something. I can feel it. That's my chance to prove it. That's because you pay your respects once a month? Yeah, that's right. That and one more thing. That locker happens to be mine. What? What do you mean? I mean what I said. That's the locker I used when I was detective. The locker I still use. All that's in there now, though, is a heap of broken dreams. I see. It'd be strange if my prints weren't all over that locker. Apparently his fingerprint data was never removed from the locker's programming. He must have been using the fingerprints lock all this time without ever knowing it. Huh. So then, what about the bloody handprint? Wasn't mine, it's no mystery. Please explain. My locker is covered with my fingerprints. It just so happened that the murder touched it. The chances of that happening are 1,000,000 to 1. On the contrary, one could argue just the opposite. The chances of that not happening are 1,000,000 to 1. Get one thing straight, partner. You ain't gonna get no reward for me with a mere fingerprint. You wanna know why? The bloodstain and the figures are completely unrelated. Unrelated? They're as different as night and day. Kinda like cereal and cereal. One's got to do with breakfast, while the other's a type of murder. He's right, although seemingly alike, they're totally different. Let's see what homonyms has to do with this. How did you know that? I may be alone, but I still do my job. I keep up with the reports. There was a blood stain at the scene, thought to be left by the murder. That's right. That's right. It was found on the Detective Gumshoe's locker. However, no fingerprints were detected on that handprint. Oh yeah, I think we tried that too. So that would mean the murderer was wearing gloves. Happened to place their hands on top of Officer Marshall's fingerprints. That's the only logical conclusion. Are you starting to get the picture, partner? The picture? The seal of blood. In the desert, it's just food for the buzzard. There's only one reality, and that's this. The security tape. So long as my trail isn't in there, you can't say otherwise. This isn't getting us anywhere, Mr. Wright. Please consider carefully where you're going with this cross-examination. Yes, Your Honor. Now then, continue your testimony, Officer Marshall. What do you mean by that? You want to tie me to this crime? Is that right, partner? If so, that video is the only direct evidence you have. But that video is next to useless. It's full of blind spots. Blind spots? Listen, you can see. The camera's panning back and forth. The floor isn't shown. If someone was familiar with the camera's position, they could leave the room without being caught on tape. We don't have time for your speculations, Mr. Wright. Well, Mr. Wright, if you can show us evidence in this video that indicates Officer Marshall was present, please do so. Yes, I do know the evidence. It's because I was a little bit too fast last time. Tread carefully, Mr. Wright, or you might wind up being the one making the mistake. I'm sorry on my words. Now then, let's have another look at the video. Alright, let's show the evidence. That's the one I showed earlier. Last time. So now that we know for sure that this is Marshall's locker, and we have the glove here. Once he beats the shit out of Meekings, he disappears. But then right over here, I have this little thing that appears. Bringing our attention back to the security camera is a mistake I'm afraid you'll soon not forget, Officer Marshall. The days are short in Texas, and so are our tempers. Could you sum up what you have to say in 8 words or less? Very well. You can clearly be seen in this video. Exactly 8 words. Not bad, partner. The key lies in a certain locker shown in the video. That locker with white cloth sticking out. That was the witnesses, I believe. Now then, let's rewind the video a bit. Makings down there. And it's gone. Oh, the white cloth. It's gone. What's the meaning of this, Miss Officer Marshall? When the crime took place, the white cloth wasn't there. Then it suddenly appeared. There's only one explanation. Officer Marshall, you were in the evidence room at the time of the crime. What's more, you opened your locker when the camera was turned away. Order, order! It would seem that the... Hold your horses. Sorry, partner, but you got the wrong man. So what if my locker was open? That doesn't mean I'm the one who opened it. The murderer needed to hide something, so he opened the locker and stuck it in it. It's not my fault he happened to just mine. Why is everyone staring at me like I'm a wanted man? This guy isn't just plain dumb. He really doesn't know. I hate to rain your parade, but you're the only person who can open that particular locker. Oh yeah? I'll call your bluff. You say I opened that locker? Now prove it. A fingerprint sensor. We talked about this earlier today. The locker can only be opened by the detectives they belong to. What kind of crazy talk is this? Well, Detective Kamshu did mention something about this. In any case, the locks aren't that obvious. There are even some people in the force that don't know about fingerprints locks. So, Sheriff, what do you have to say in 8 words or less? I only got 1 word for you, partner. No! Order, order, order. Witness, explain yourself. If this is a joke, it's the worst I've ever heard. I assume this is no joke, Officer Marshall. Now then, please tell us what you were doing in that evidence room at the time of the crime. Ole, please answer the question. What is he now, a bullfighter? That's alright, Officer Marshall. I believe we can figure out the rest from here. We can? Have a look at these floor plans. There's no place for someone to hide in the evidence room. Yet Officer Meekins didn't see Officer Marshall. If that's so, then where was the witness? It seems Mr. Wright has an answer. That's right, the only possible conclusion. Well then, let's hear it. Where was Officer Marshall at the time of the crime? Wait. That's his locker. He walked. That's him, right? Officer Marshall was standing right there. So Officer Meekins didn't notice him standing there. That's almost as credible as Meekins' warp theory. Oh, crap. Wait, Officer Meekins should have seen him in this room. It was like, if the camera was like here, Officer Marshall was standing right there. So Officer Meekins didn't notice him standing there. That's almost a scribble. Wait, what? Wait. There? I don't know. That's oh, okay. I get it. Okay, that was so weird. For some reason, I thought they were talking about the when he changed it. Okay, yeah, now I understand. I misunderstood that. Okay, that's where the victim, Detective Goodman, was. Correct, unless the man wasn't Detective Goodman. I believe the victim in the video is Officer Marshall. It was you dressed up like Detective Goodman. But that's preposterous. Officer Meekins witnessed the detective at the crime scene. Once he saw the man's face, he'd know for sure. May I point out that Officer Meekins didn't know that Detective Goodman. He also testified about the man's reaction when confronted. When I entered the evidence room, I asked him to show his card, sir. Yes, and how did Detective Goodman respond? He suddenly pulled a knife on me. Something about the officer's story puzzled me. If the man had an his ID card, why didn't he just show it? Yes, he would have needed to enter the evidence room, so he must have been carrying it. The answer is simple. He couldn't show it. As you can see, Detective Goodman's picture is on his ID card. Oh, I get it. If he showed that, his cover would have been blown. Officer Meekins would have realized that the man wasn't Detective Goodman. Do you have anything to say to this, Officer Marshall? You've got quite an imagination, partner. We got a term for that. It's called circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial? What? He's still denying it? You're gonna have to do better than that to beg a detective. Unless you have hard evidence proving that I dressed up as him. I can't say I particularly care for your uncooperative disposition. I can say I care for your beard, but you don't see me complaining. Well, Mr. Wright, do you have any evidence proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Officer Marshall dressed up as the victim? Well, Who am I kidding? I don't have anything like that. I can see the fear in your eyes, partner. Seems you're the one who couldn't take the desert heat. Ah, this can't be happening. It's so obvious he's the one. What can I do? Looks like your lack of experience has finally been exposed. I'll pass on to you what someone told me when I was just starting out. When you run out into a wall with no place to go, return to the basics. The basics? For me, that would be what Mia used to tell me. Phoenix, try thinking outside of the box. I shouldn't look for proof that Officer Marshall was in disguise. But rather, I should look for evidence that came out about because he was in disguise. Why do you think his locker was open in the first place? What do you mean? There's no reason for Officer Marshall to open his locker at the time of the crime. Yet he did, despite the chance he might be discovered later, as it has been. Which means he didn't originally plan to open his locker. According to the defense's argument, Officer J. Marshall dressed up as Detective Goodman at the time of the crime. Then, after the crime was committed, he opened his own locker for some unknown reason. The fact that a white cloth is sticking out of the locker seems to indicate that he opened it in order to put the cloth inside. So, just what is this piece of cloth? Perhaps the video is the key to all of our unanswered questions. I don't have any evidence, so the video is my only shot. Very well. Let's take another look at the security tape. After committing the crime, the witness opened the locker to put away the white cloth. Please show us why the witness had to open his locker. It is quite simple. It's because covered in blood. For some reason, you disguised yourself as Detective Goodman and entered the evidence room, though I don't know to what end yet. However, something unexpected happened. Officer Meekins barged in on you. When asked to show your ID card, you pulled off a knife on him. However, Officer Meekins panicked, and the white cloth you were wearing was soiled with blood. A bloody white coat. You couldn't just walk out like that, so you hid the coat in your locker. Not bad, partner. Now then, Officer Marshall, are you ready to tell us the truth? Looks like I underestimated y'all. I hope you're happy now, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, if you were only half as persistent as you are today, we all wouldn't have to be here now. Now, would we? Officer Marshall, tell the court what you did. All of it. Alright. Seems the time has come. Marshall's confession. I had to do it that day. I couldn't just stand by and let it die. I stole the detective's ID card, dressed like him. I planned to take out the evidence. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out. I managed to escape. I knew which areas couldn't be caught on the camera. There wasn't any murder in the evidence room at 5:15. So the supposed victim was really you. But there's one thing I still don't understand. Traces of a large quantity of blood were found on the floor of the evidence room. If no one was murdered, then how could that be? Officer Meekins managed to cut his own hand. My guess is he's the donor. It was way too much blood for such a small donation. When you say it, you mean... Do you even have to ask, partner? Yes, online incident. 2 years ago, 2 years have passed since that case was closed. It was going to completely end with the transfer that day. Not if I have anything to say to do with it. That incident's not over. But what did you hope to accomplish by sneaking into the evidence room? When a case is closed, only that case the detective can look through the evidence. I wanted to have a look at it myself one more time. No matter what the cost. I don't care what anyone says, partner. That case is mine. Officer Marshall wasn't in charge of that investigation. Why does he care so much about it? That day was my last chance. That's why I stole the detective's ID card and dressed like him. Why did you disguise yourself as Detective Goodman? If I didn't make it look like Goodman was carrying out the evidence transferal, I'd be arrested for stealing evidence, which wouldn't get me anywhere. So he did it to fool the security camera. And the detective's ID card? I stole that the morning of the incident. So that really was why Goodman started filling out the lost item report. I returned his ID card. I left it on the floor in the prosecutor's office parking lot. The ID card I found was left there by Officer Marshall. So, essentially, you managed to succeed despite your lack of foresight. What do you mean, partner? I mean the fingerprint activity lock, of course. No matter how well you disguise yourself, you can't change your fingerprints. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have been able to open the locker yourself. But he could have a rubber glove. But he could because a rubber glove just happened to get stuck in the door. That means Detective Goodman must open the locker before Officer Marshall. You pulled a knife Officer Meekins and tried to drive him off? Let's just say I was a little surprised. I only planned on being in the evidence room for no more than 5 minutes. I didn't think anyone would actually come in during that short time. Officer Meekins certainly is a one-in-a-million type of person. Mistaking a detective for an intruder and demanding to be shown his ID. I have to think a little more about his race this year. When did Edward get so much influence? Anyway, he threw himself at me and I ended up cutting him slightly. I'm sorry I had to turn out that way. With me knocking him out and everything. By the way, what happened to your knife? Oh, you mean this one? What to say? So you knocked Officer Meekins out and... So you did your research beforehand? Those who go into the desert unprepared don't live long enough for it. I didn't think it would make a difference though. The security tape is erased every 6 hours. If all had gone as planned, no footage would have been left. However, you bloodied your coat in your struggle with Officer Meekins. If someone was in the security room when I came out, the jig would have been up. Open my locker and stash it in there. What was Officer Meekins doing that time? What else? He was sleeping like a baby. So, what you're saying is, on that day, there wasn't a murder in the evidence room at 5:50. But the blood found at the scene certainly indicates a crime took place. What, are you blind? The victim shown on that tape is me, and I'm not dead yet, partner. So you stole the evidence from the locker? Actually, no, I didn't. Why not? When I opened the locker, the evidence was already gone. What? Mr. Edgeworth, where is that evidence? It's still missing, Your Honor. Detective Goodman's locker was already empty. Someone else stole the evidence? Officer Marshall, may I ask you one thing? Fire away, partner. It's a free country. Just remember, I'm also free to decide whether or not to answer. Why did you do this? Stealing a detective's ID, injuring the police officer. This is no small offense. Moreover, you're an officer yourself. This will have serious consequences. It can't just be forgiven with a simple cut in salary. Not that salary cuts are ever a valid solution. Like I said, this isn't your case. This one's mine. And I'll do anything it takes to get an answer I'm satisfied with. The witness has an unusual amount of zeal. Let's hear more. But that case was solved 2 years ago, wasn't it? As the recent evidence was stored in the evidence room. Joe Dark was convicted for his crimes. One thing I can say for sure is he deserved his sentence. I remember the Joe Dark case. It involved serial murders, didn't it? I don't intend to complain about how it turned out. But there's something that still bothers me. Something went down at that trial. Something no one will talk about. What happened? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out. Why is he so concerned with that incident? Maybe I should present him with what he thinks his real reason is? It's because his brother. I think that's because his brother's a victim. Officer Marshall, I think I understand. I think I know why you care so much about the SL9 incident. Sounds like you've been sipping too much cactus juice, partner. I have the SL9 incident file here. The name Marshall is mentioned in here. In a list of murder victims. Neil Marshall. Are you related to this man? Neil Marshall? Yeah, I'm sure you've heard this name. 2 years ago, he received the same lousy prosecutor award you got. What? A prosecutor? He must be talking about the King of Prosecutors award. Now I remember. Prosecutor Neil Marshall. He handled the SL9 case before I did. That's right. He was killed. And the case fell into your hands. But what's his relation to you? He was my brother. He was investigating the murder with Damon Gaunt, the then Deputy Chief of Police. The group of detectives I was part of worked under them. We were desperate to prosecute the killer. Joe Dark. Oh my god. I'm sorry. I know this game came out like, you know, like. Holy crap! It came like. Was it like, wait, 14 years ago? Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. The design of Joe Dark, especially with the eyes, it reminds me of, I don't remember his name, but it's a character from Chainsaw Man. I don't know why, it just, I think it's the eyes because a lot of characters have those, like, doubles, like, anyway, that's irrelevant. It just reminds me of the style of a character in Chainsaw Man. That's why. My brother fought Dark and was killed. That was the first time Dark left behind any evidence. That was all we needed. He was arraigned and incarcerated. The case was finally closed. At least according to the police, to the public records. What do you mean? My brother couldn't have been killed by Joe Dark. I knew my brother better than anyone. No one could have beaten him in a fight. And that's it? That's your reason for your insane actions? There's more to my brother's death than what the records say. No matter how much you try to hide it, you can't fool me. Well, at least one thing's for certain. Now we know what happened at the police department on the day of the crime. That was the last day the SL9 case could be reopened. Not satisfied with its resolution, Officer Marshall planned to steal the evidence. Disguising himself as Detective Goodman, he entered the evidence room. Officer Meekins confronted him, and he rendered him unconscious and fled. Yes, this mystery has finally been cleared up. No murder took place at the police department that day. The thing that happened by chance never ceased to amaze. At exactly the same time as the murder at the prosecutor's office, this fake murder was going on at the police department. Chance? It's got to be more than just that. So if no one was murdered at the police department on the day of the crime, that means the murder in the prosecutor's office parking lot was the real one. Which in turn means only one person could have committed the crime. Chief Prosecutor Lana Skye. But wait, a verdict wasn't reached in yesterday's trial. Which is why we examined the incident at the police department today. But there's only one reason the defendant was not convinced yesterday. There yet remained the mystery of the simultaneous murder at the police department. It seems to me this boy's got to draw on you, partner. All of the mysteries at the police department have been resolved, no doubt about it. Our sole murder took place at the prosecutor's office. The only suspect is Lana Skye, and the testimony of one Miss Angel Star is completely incontestable. If you have a response, make it a single word, or less. Ugh! I rest my case. What a dick. It seems that this trial has reached its conclusion. There's no room for doubt. Well done, Mr. Wright. Thanks to you, I didn't need to waste my time disproving the alleged murder at the police department. There's no doubt that what I proved today is true. The apparent murder on the security camera tapes really was fake. But I didn't realize that would end up proving Lana guilty. Now then, the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant. Hold it! Your Honor, wait. Emma, the defense has an objection, a scientific objection. Right? What do you mean, right? Mr. Wright, are you this girl's guardian? Your Honor? Oh, in a sense. Please, Your Honor, all I'm asking you is a minute of your time. Please hear me out. Mr. Edgeworth, please. I don't want to leave any loose ends. You want a minute? I'll give you 3. I was kind of in shock. I mean, finding out the SL9 incident referred to the Joe Dark killings. Now that she mentions it, the name of both Skye sisters were in that file. But that's when I figured it out. I mean, what Officer Marshall was trying to do that day. So I knew his fingerprints had nothing to do with the crime. That left only one thing, the other handprint. You mean the traces of blood found in Detective Gumshoe's locker? But no fingerprints were found on it, right? No, but I figured if I examined it scientifically, I'd be sure to find a clue. So I went over there and looked at it again. So, did you find something? No. Huh? Sorry, I guess I'm not much of a scientific investigator after all. Is that all? Please don't be mad. I'm just a high school student. Just an attorney. But Mr. Wright, those traces of blood are the only clue we have left. If we can't find something wrong with them, please, Mr. Wright, you're a professional. If anyone can save Lana, it's you. Me? Oh boy. Time's up. Now then, Mr. Wright. With regard of the incident at the police department, does any reasonable doubt remain? It appears the defense is troubled by the blood mark. Looking at the floor plans, the handprint was discovered around here. Is there a problem with this? Mr. Wright, I'm sorry, I can be more of use. But still, if you can't find anything wrong with that blood mark, Lana will be... Please answer my question, Mr. Wright. We don't have all day. Yes, Your Honor. If ever I needed to concentrate, it's now. What could be wrong with that handprint on Detective Gumshoe's locker? Could there be something I'm missing? Yes, there is. This handprint left at the crime scene fully shows a contradiction. The only thing that seems clear is your grasping, Mr. Wright. You've been staring pretty intently at those floor plans. Tell me, is there a problem with them? Yes, this is strange. Take a good look at these floor plans. Something is missing. Missing? You mean something wasn't being drawn on there? Yes, something that, when drawn, will completely change the meaning of the blood mark. Let us pray the defense isn't simply trying to buy time. Very well, Mr. Wright. With all this evidence here, there's got to be something I can use. The question is, which item can prove something is missing in the floor plans? This one, right? They say back west, even a blind man can hit with a buckshot. That is, so long as he's facing the general direction. It seems Mr. Wright's not sure which direction to face. It's no use. The more evidence there is, the greater the chance of me being wrong. Just calm down, Mr. Wright. Try and remember what the evidence room was like on the day of the crime. Okay. What could it be? Okay, hold on. Oh, no! I pressed Y by mistake, that's not it, Sorry. No, that's the parking. Okay, what's the difference with this one? There's only one blood thing? Would it be the glove? No, that's not it. Alright. What's the problem with this? Which item can prove that something is missing in the floor plans? Which I think can prove that something is missing in the floor plans. Okay. Which item can prove something is missing in the floor plans? This one? What? Wait. I'm trying. I just did it because I. What about that piece of plywood? The Blue Badger, mascot of the police force. I just did it. I'm trying to think about why this would be like the logical answer. I'm just trying to think. They're going to explain anyway. I just chose it because I thought it was going to be like stupid. Because this is the thing. Since this is the last case, the last chapter, this is the one where I remember a little bit of stuff, especially the harder, like a little bit of the harder stuff. That's why in the last video I immediately went with the cloth because I remember it took me a while before I could find the evidence of the piece of cloth in Marshall's locker. But now I'm trying to remember why the Blue Badger was irrelevant. Explain yourself, Mr. Wright. Please look at the floor plans at the crime scene. The Blue Badger is not here. So what happens when we put him in? This is where he was dancing at the time of the crime. Okay. Well, what? That's right. So long as the Blue Badger is dancing here, it would be impossible to place a handprint at this spot on the locker. What? So that means, just exactly what does that mean? It means that it can be done. You're saying blood traces were undeniably found on the locker. Don't look at me. I didn't put it there. Mr. Wright, think it through scientifically. Emma, on that afternoon, Officer Meeking was the one who brought the Blue Badger to the evidence room, right? After he put it down, it would be impossible to leave a handprint on that locker. So that must mean this blood mark was left there before the Blue Badger was brought in? Just one moment. I will not allow such far-fetched balderdash in my courtroom. It may sound far-fetched, Your Honor, but it's the only possible explanation. On February 21st, in the police department's evidence room, blood was spilled not once, but twice. But how? One time was captured on this tape, taken by the security camera. Officer Meekings cut his hand, from which a trivial amount of blood fell. The problem is, the other time, someone bled prior to the struggle shown on this tape. It had to have been Detective Goodman when he was really murdered. That's ridiculous. I refuse to accept your absurd claim. The murder portrayed in the security tape has been proven to be a fake. However, that does not explain the blood mark left on the locker. So then, assuming this murder you purport it really happened, when did it take place? I demand you to show evidence that proves when it occurred. When did the first occurred? To summarize, the defense claims that Prior to Officer Meekins being cut by Jake Marshall, who was posing as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room. That's right, the blood mark on the locker proves this. Very well, then tell us. When did this first incident occur, as Mr. Edward said? Proof must be presented. Proof that show when the murder took place. There's only one piece of evidence that can show that. Now then, will the defense please present its evidence? Well, that's pretty simple. There's only one thing that shows us that time. That's this. If the crimes took place inside the evidence room and the killer would have entered it, and in order to do so, an ID card would have been required. An ID card. Oh! The ID card record! Officer Meekins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room at, let's see here, 4:50. If the crime took place before that time, then it would be 4:40 p.m. Oh! Mads Edgeworth! Just what have you done? I thought I never would have figured out you had the nerve, boy. Shut the ag, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me. Nope, I ain't getting it. I'm afraid I don't understand either. Clear is from the luminol test that blood was there. However, when the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood. That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away by the real murder. I would have had just 10 minutes to murder the victim, carry his body away, and clean up the blood. Unfortunately, that's physically impossible. That would mean the crime must have taken place before Mr. Edward entered the evidence room. Let's look at the chart again. There's only one other card number remaining. 7. Is it real? It's 7 times 7. Oh my god. I can only say 7 that would work. 7 sevens. Or 7. That's weird. There are 7s. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Talk about a lucky number. But wait, that doesn't make sense. How could Detective Goodman have entered the evidence room? Since there's no record of his card being used beforehand, he must have entered along with the real murder. That's the only plausible explanation. He went in with 7-7. Mr. Edgeworth, please look into this ASAP. Find out whose ID number is 7-7. That's 172. Oh my god. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to look up at the owner of that ID card. At least at the present. What? Explain yourself, son. The ID number 77 belongs to someone with a rank of captain or higher. Someone who is so-called executive officer. We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity. But that's ridiculous. Just how... Not finished talking, Miss Wright. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority. If an official charge filed against an executive is accepted. An official charge? You're all alike, aren't you? With your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor's office operates. I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I will appreciate if you would keep up your slander to yourself. Ooh. Slander, is it? Okay, let me ask you a question. Yeah? No, not you. To her. The defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive. Huh? Don't be stupid. She's been charged with a murder. Of course we've looked up her ID number. And it's not 77. Don't play me for a fool, partner. That's not what I want to ask. All I want to know is one thing about that incident. The SL9 incident. Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. In that trial 2 years ago, did you really only use legitimate evidence? Do you need the witness to repeat his question, Chief Prosecutor? I heard it fine, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, I was in charge of the prosecution for that trial. At the time, occasionally, we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least, I did. Lana? I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law. Dependent. Just what you're saying. I ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During that trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Can you look me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say that you did? Chief Prosecutor, you didn't. I don't have to, Officer Marshall. Why won't you answer him? Trusting crimes requires trusting measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. But Lana, even if it involved forging evidence. See? That's what I'm talking about. No. No! Order! 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 Lana's remarks caused such a stir. The chaos in the courtroom could not be quelled. The conclusion of the trial would have to wait until the following day. To be continued.